Oh, his name is James Charles.
James Charles.
I woke up to James Charles being canceled again.
Between James Charles.
James Charles has previously admitted to inappropriate behavior with minors, and now he currently stands accused of housing and sleeping with Evan Johnson, the abuser of Kayla Malik. Now, before we get into this discussion, let's give a quick round of applause to Kayla and her legal team because she has won her court case against Evan. Now, when it comes to the whole James Charles of it all, the questions that are being circled around are why does he still have a platform? Why isn't he canceled? Why haven't we done away with him? And things of that nature. And that's for a couple of reasons. Because one, we keep giving him attention. I know that makes me sound like a little bit of a hypocrite because of this entire video, but hey, I'm human. And two, when it comes to a lot of the drama surrounding him, not to sound like one of those facts over feelings kind of guys, but it's very obvious that a lot of people do not want to look at it logically. And number three, and the most important, this triangle right here. Now, if your memory needs a little bit of jogging, this triangle consists of Tati Westbrook, Jeffree Star, and Shane Dawson. Now, who we're really going to focus on is Tati Westbrook because she's the most prominent figure in all of this mess. Before you start shitting your diaper, this video is not meant to be a defense of James Charles or his actions. This is merely an analysis, a commentary, and my observations as to why we are where we are today.
It was just like, no big deal. Like sucking dick and cock. Like, I'm just like, oh my God. Time and place.
To say that Tati made an absolute fool of herself when she dropped by Sister would be the understatement of the year because need I remind everyone, she did it all over some vitamins. And my question is, did anybody actually buy them? And then when the proof dropped that James actually was trying to reach out to her, apologize, and explain what the situation actually was, and that she was ignoring him, it further cut her credibility because it made her look childish. However, what we should really be focusing on is the main allegation itself, James's predatory behavior towards a waiter, or that he's trying to convert straight men. Now, that does seem pretty damning until it is shown through text conversations, a video by Sam Cooke, the waiter in question, that it was all consensual and there was no predatory behavior going on. And the ironic thing about Sam Cooke's original video is that it was supposed to villainize James and make him look like the predator. But don't worry, Sam Cooke will later follow up with an apology video to James for lying.
And after that movie, he asked to kiss me. And I was very nervous because I'd never done anything with a guy and I was quite curious. So I said yes. The things I said in the past video are not all true. I was in the wrong by painting James Charles in a bad light for my own benefit. I want to publicly and officially apologize to James Charles for the video.
So it is not looking good for Tati or her credibility right now. But do not worry, that is not the end of the Bi Sister fallout because James would later get hit with more false allegations. For example, Zara Larsson would then accuse him of trying to convert her boyfriend, only to then retract her statement and then admit that it was just one compliment DM and James leaving flirty comments on her boyfriend's Insta, the ones that everyone else was leaving. And then a Tumblr user falsely accused James of sexually assaulting their friend, only to later admit in their apology that it was a social experiment. I don't know about you guys, but of all things, I don't think that's the one thing you want to do social experiments with. So now James has 3 false allegations against him and 1 call out that is done by someone who clearly has some kind of petty vendetta against him. And I know what you're going to say about those other 2 allegations. That has nothing to do with Tati. She can't control what other people do. And you know what? You may be right. However, the only reason those people did those things is because they felt emboldened by Tati's video. So now it seems like this whole trend has started to accuse this famous gay man of touching on people.
James thinks that me and Shane tried to ruin his life.
You are fake crying! You are fake crying!
And that was just a mere taste of the calamity that was Bi Sister. However, we're going to put Tati in some Tupperware because we're going to get more into her later. Because right now, we need to focus on 2 more key figures in this story. And they are Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson. 2 very controversial people whose involvement will add further context as to why James Charles is viewed as innocent by so many. Let's start off with Jeffree Star because my lord, did that man make a spectacle. Not only did he back up Tati's claims and say that there's going to be more proof and that he was making his own video, he also said that there was going to be more victims coming forward. No such thing happened. Well, at least not in the way that he was talking about, but you guys know what I mean. You know what I mean. And that doesn't even begin to describe his behavior. Like, in the middle of all of it. In this message here, Jeffree hits James with a barrage of allegations. The first one being that James tried to touch Grayson Dolan in his sleep. To this day, this has never been confirmed. However, according to James, both of the Dolan twins hit him up to clear the air and make sure that he was all right. The second one being that he was trying to force Zach into like him and trying to pressure him into sending explicit photos. Now, if you do not know who Zach is, that is the brother of Nathan, who is the ex-boyfriend of Jeffree Star. However, James provides a text conversation that proves that this is untrue. And the funny thing about that is, Jeffree was the one that tried to set up James and Zach to like each other. And then Jeffree tries to bring up the situation with Sam, which we've already established was fully consensual. And then he brings up this Cameron character. I'm being so serious with you guys when I tell you, this Cameron guy never comes up at all. Whenever I was doing my research for this video, I was going Cameron, James Charles, Cameron. Nothing came up. Now, where Jeffree really started to play with fire was when he responded to this innocuous tweet by James's brother Ian. Now, the tweet itself, harmless. It's a tweet that you would expect young teenagers to make. However, Jeffree responded, "Why is your brother a predator? Why'd you really move back to NYC? Shut the fuck up." Now, this really threw people off because what could Jeffree possibly mean by this? But if you ask me, Jeffree was trying to imply that there was a situation where James was predating on his own brother. And when he rightfully got dumpstered for that tweet, Jeffree deleted it and acted like nothing happened. I think it is very important to note that when it comes to Jeffree Star, this is not a new behavior. And what I mean by that is he will call someone out for something, be very aggressive about it, and then just act like it didn't happen and retract his statement. Now, for example, there's this guy, the Hive, and Jeffree called him out for being a pedophile and a rapist. But then Jeffree retracted his statement and then acted like him and the Hive, whatever, were best buddies. This shows that Jeffree does not engage with things in good faith, but what it does show is that he likes to make very damning statements, and when he no longer sees the benefit in believing in those statements, he walks them back and then proceeds as if nothing happened. Now, this also creates a narrative that James is the victim of a harassment campaign, and it also creates a narrative that Jeffree is trying to intimidate James into whatever. And then we get into Shane, and he does try to deny his involvement in Sister with his farewell to the beauty community statement, but it doesn't quite add up. But hold on to your balls because it will make all the sense when we get closer to the end.
So that everybody's saying, where's the receipts? I don't have the receipts.
In this section, we're going to discuss allegations that people looked over because they were either flat out false, blown out of proportion, or just straight up had little to no evidence to come to a real conclusion. Now, this is going to be like a little disclaimer. I'm only going to cover the ones that I could actually, find something on. And I think it's best to start with the most ridiculous one ever. Def Noodles makes a post validating an allegation that claims that James hit someone up when they were 14 in 2016, and then in 2020 asked them, "How about now?" Here's the problem. If Def just looked a little closer, he would have seen that in the caption of the allegation, it would have said #meme, #funny, and mad sus. And also, if the original conversation was in 2016, that means James would have also been a minor. It really makes you wonder how Def fell off so hard.
Is it just me, or does everybody from the 518 just know that James Charles catfished his whole high school soccer team for all their nudes, and nobody ever says anything? I've never seen it really go publicly or anything, but I've talked to so many people in the 518 about James Charles, and they're like, "Oh my god, the catfish situation." We all know it, but all the people from his hometown just don't say anything.
Now, Sarah here is claiming that James Charles catfished his entire high school soccer team for explicit photos. Now, when I was doing my research, I found absolutely nothing on this topic at hand. No one has come forward to confirm or deny these claims. So for now, we can just speculate because the entire team and nobody caught on. So right now, it's looking like inconclusive, leaning mostly towards false. Personally, it'd be way more believable if she said the football team or the wrestlers. I probably should not say that. Coming up next, Tommy Gabriel brings up a claim that James is making a straight man who goes by David very uncomfortable. Now, before we get into it, I think it is important to note that David, when him and James were talking, was an adult. I'm not gonna lie to you, James is being very cringe here and he's laying it on a little thick, especially when he's sending selfies to David and trying to convince him to FaceTime. However, when you look at further screenshots, it's very obvious that it's not how Tommy or David is trying to make it out to be. Here we can see that David is hearting James's messages and is even flirting back a little with him. To the audience, this reads as that he is entertaining this to some extent. And then you get to the screenshot where James is talking about his body count. Now, it is in vanish mode, and conveniently, we can only see what James has said. But based off of the caption and the emoticon that David put on the picture, it's very obvious that he was the one who initiated. That helps to form a narrative that David was only talking to James to see if he could get him to say something sexual so that he'd have something to expose for later. Allow me to introduce you to Gage Gomez. Now, Gage is a model slash influencer, and in either 2019 or 2020, photos of him and James together at Coachella were circling around, which led to people believing that they were in a relationship. James would then shut down these rumors by calling Gage a con artist and saying that Gage was using him for a free Coachella ticket. This would then lead Gage into making a video where he claims that James pressured him into a relationship despite him being straight. However, leaked conversations between the two of them would show that this is not the full story. But don't worry, it doesn't stop there. Tana Montague throws her hat into the ring and she pushes back against Gage's claims by saying she witnessed Gage lead on and kiss James Charles. Now, this would inevitably leading to people being split. One side believes that Gage actually did use James for a free Coachella ticket, and one side believes that James actually was predating on Gage. However, I want to offer a more humanizing perspective. And again, this is not defending James at all because, as we all know now, how I see it, it's two very immature people who are expecting different things, but they don't really know how to go about it. The internet got involved and it all spun out of control. However, it does seem to lean more in James's favor because Gage does admit in his video that he knew that James goes after straight men.
So he's not stupid. He's not an idiot. He knows he's going after straight boys. And he just continues to lead himself on, I guess you could say.
Oh yeah, and there's also this. This next allegation comes from Matthew, who is claiming that when he was 16, him and James Charles were talking for a while, and that eventually James Charles sent him an ass pic. However, James knew the entire time that he was 16. But his evidence is a little shaky, for lack of a better word. But why tell you when I can just show you?
Here we go. November 7th, 2020, 9:24. Age check. You're thinking, could be harmless. He's just asking for my age. And I responded and I said, I'm a very mature 16. So we had like maybe 5 texts back and forth on Instagram. It was age check, I'm a very mature 16. But he then proceeded to snap me. And we snapped for a while, didn't really talk much, like whatever. Then I get this snap one day. Now, this is November 24th, 2020. James Charles. I don't know if this was the actual snap. I don't have any screenshots of my snaps. But I opened the snap and I swear to God, it was a full ass pic.
I'm sure you can take a good guess as to why people just swept this one under the rug. And I really hate to be that guy, but it is very hard to believe what he's saying because he has the screenshot of James asking for his age, but he doesn't have the screenshot of him telling James his age. He doesn't have the screenshot of their snaps, but he has the screenshot of the notification. Doesn't really add up, right? Now, let's just say that somebody was coming into this with fresh eyes and they do not know who James Charles is at all. To them, it would most likely appear as if this boy is most likely lying about his age and clipping things out of context to make James Charles look bad. Again, I'm not defending James. I'm just establishing what the narrative is. This last allegation is a bit of a doozy because while it is an old one, the guy who made it and his brother are trying to resurface it, and I have recorded the rest of this video already, but I was going to hold off on this one until they said something new, and it looks like so far they're not going to say anything new. So let's just get into it. So Ethan Red, who is also known as Ethan Andrew, claims that when he was 14, as him and James were messaging, James would try to get him into doing things or make advances towards him. To be more specific, Ethan claims that he did tell James that he was 14. However, that did not stop the sister from sending him explicit photos and asking for photos in return. Now, in a video that has since been deleted, Ethan does show the explicit photos from James. However, according to people who saw the original video, the pictures were already posted to James Charles' social medias prior. Now, at this point in time is where the ties start to turn against Ethan. Ethan would then further deplete his credibility when he posts this screenshot here. Now, you don't even need to take a good look to see that he has deleted his side of the messages. To the audience, this reads as if he has said something to James that he does not want us to know, something that would probably discredit his story. However, in this screenshot where you don't see him deleting his side of the messages, he very clearly contradicts himself because he says that him and James never talked, but he also says that him and James were friends. Hold on to your tampons, because it doesn't stop there. People's belief in Ethan began to fall even further because confusion about his age began to stir. Firstly, because James claimed that Ethan originally told him that he was 18. However, the only proof we have for this is a screenshot where James asks Ethan how old he is, and Ethan responds with a picture. But based off of the evidence we have now, it is most likely that Ethan told him an age that was 18 or older. Then there was the issue of famous birthdays at the time saying that Ethan was 15 instead of 14 like he was insisting on. He does acknowledge this discrepancy, but he doesn't explain why the discrepancy is there in the first place.
My age is on the internet. Okay, it says 15. It's a 1 year difference. I'm still a minor. I'm still underage. My age is on the internet. Okay, if he really wanted to look that deep into it, he could have looked up my age.
After looking at his Twitter, his Instagram, and the now corrected famous birthdays page, Ethan does appear to be 19 as of today, and this situation took place in 2020, which was 5 years ago, so it is very likely that he was 14. However, he is a very unreliable narrator. To give him the most charitability, it's very likely that during the commotion, famous birthdays got it wrong. However, coming in to kill his credibility, or as the kids say, unalive, his brother, Zay. Ethan and his brother, Zay, make a follow-up video where they recap the situation with James Charles and essentially make a claim that James threatened to destroy Ethan and his family and make Ethan's life a living hell if they ever made a video. But we never see these threats at all. But that's not the thing that really destroys their entire narrative. When I was looking through threads or watching videos about this situation when I was researching it, I was finding comments that all alluded to the same thing. They claimed to have known Ethan and Zay or went to school with them, and they all said that lying about Ethan's age is not an uncommon thing for them to do. Now, I wasn't quite sure how much validity these claims had until I came across a series of TikToks by Reagan, who is an ex-friend of the two of them, and she says that when she originally encountered them, they told her that Ethan was 17 going on 18, and she also goes on to say that they were lying to James and saying that Ethan was 18.
Okay, I don't like getting in drama. I don't like getting in drama, but if I see something that I don't like, something that's not true, a fabricated statement, I'm gonna speak up on it, especially if I know the people personally. So these two guys, Ethan and Zay, are trying to claim that James Charles baited them. And people are believing them, as they do on social media. What I think is funny about it is that a month ago, they texted me, since I've known them for 2 or 3 years now. They live a good 20, 30 minutes away from me. I've never met them personally, but we've been social media friends for a fat minute. James commented on one of my videos and they saw it, so they FaceTimed me. Keep in mind, the only time they've ever reached out to me is whenever I've hit a success, or I've hit another milestone, which is also really funny. But they saw that James commented on one of my videos. It was a transition video and he gave me a compliment. Obviously, I'm a fangirl, so I was freaking out. This is part 1, part 2 is gonna be posted after this. So Ethan and Zay snap call me. I answered the call and they're like, hey, we saw that James commented on your video, like that's super cool. And I was just freaking out. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, he did. And then Ethan was like, well, I actually talked to James. And Zay was like, yeah, he talks to James. And I was like, oh, like that's so cool, whatever. And then he proceeded to tell me that he DM'd him and that James actually responded and he thought that was crazy. He's telling me how it was so cool that James had talked to him and that they Snapchatted each other. He was just basically bragging about how James talks to him and how he flirts with James and all this stuff. He told me, he's like, I'm not gay, but like it's James Charles, so I'm gonna flirt with him. Keep in mind, Ethan has told me before that he's 17 about to turn 18. All of a sudden he's 14. So when I hear that he told James that he was 14 and then I saw that James posted screenshots saying he's 18, I believed it because he lied to me about his age. Part 3 is after this. I think it's funny that in his video he's 14 or 15, either or they're the same thing. And he's saying, well, he could have looked me up. I could have looked him up too, but I didn't because that's weird. Who just goes and looks people up? I'm sorry, I don't do that. Basically, Ethan claims that James baited him, James was sending him booty pics, and that he felt so uncomfortable. He felt like his family's life was in danger because he was being hit on after he DM'd someone saying that he was trying to shoot his shot, knowing their sexuality, lying about their age. But in his video, he says everything opposite of what actually happened, and I know because he told me. So I saw on Snapchat Drama Alert the video clips from Ethan's video he made telling the story about James Charles and what happened. I'm not even lying when I say I looked at that video like this because a month ago they had told me exactly what happened and it was nothing that they were saying in the video. They were conscious about the whole situation. Part 4 after this. So whenever I saw that Snapchat, I sent it to him. I screenshotted it and I sent it to him. I sent it to Ethan on Snapchat. I don't have his number saved because I just thought they were sketchy in the first place. He opened my screenshot that I sent him, left it on red, and I replied again. I was not about to let someone get canceled for something that didn't even happen just because they want a little bit of clout. And I sent him a bunch of question marks, didn't answer. So then the next day I Snapchatted him, this is yesterday, and I said, why are you lying about this to get clout? I'm blocked. Then I go on my DMs and like maybe I can find something about it in Zay's DMs on Instagram because he always DMs me. I'm blocked. So if y'all want to believe Ethan and Zay, y'all can, but whenever I try to confront them about it because they told me what happened, they blocked me. Isn't that like a little bit sketchy? Just a tiny bit sketchy that they blocked me. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna let someone get canceled for something they didn't do, especially if you lied about your age. Everything Ethan and Zay said in the video is the complete opposite from what they told me. It's very clear what they're trying to do, and it's disgusting.
Now Zay does make a response video to Reagan, but he contradicts himself so much in that video. I genuinely feel like he is trolling the audience. Like it feels like actual satire. Me telling you is not gonna be enough. I need to show you guys this.
Why would I FaceTime you when I don't have your number? I don't understand how you were able to talk to me and I only had communication with you on Instagram and phone number, and we did. No, and I know that we can call other people. You were in that group chat. You know everything that went down. We all introduced ourselves to each other. There's plenty of witnesses. Everyone in that group chat knew Ethan was 14 years old, including you. So please stop. That's a lie. You never met us 2 to 3 years ago, because I didn't even know Ethan 2 to 3 years ago. So just stop lying, bro. Didn't have you added on Snapchat. You want to follow me. You want to add me on Snapchat.
Did nobody look that over with him? I'm sure you can see why I was putting brother in quotes. But, anyways, it's safe to say that this one is false, or at the very least, unverifiable. Now, in the examples I've shown you, you have probably noticed a pattern or two. One of these patterns being that a lot of these straight or bi-curious men will mutually engage with James until they realize he actually wants more than just texting back and forth, and rather than just using the block button or calling it quits, they will go on to say they were coerced, which we now see is not the case. And another pattern is a lot of these accusers will show James's side of the messages, but they will never show theirs. And when they do show theirs, it's not quite what they try to make it out to be. If I haven't made it clear enough, I am not on James Charles's side at all. He is a terrible person who needs to be held accountable for the things he verifiably did. And this is going to sound really cliche, but with all the examples I showed you, that kind of stuff hurts anyone who is an actual victim of him. And again, like I mentioned like a little bit earlier, we need to think about this from the perspective of someone who does not have the knowledge that we have on James Charles, somebody that's not as online. If they saw all of that, right, it would just look like a bunch of people throwing whatever they can at the wall until it sticks to take down one guy. And you know what? I do kind of get it. Nobody wants to be the person to tell a potential victim that they're a liar or that their story isn't good enough, especially if the potential victim in question is a child. However, we gotta stop this whole thing of taking every single thing we hear at face value because we create an easy case for a person who we claim to be a predator to just say, oh, they're making a smear campaign against me, and they just get off scot-free.
And I allowed myself to be worked by Shane, Jeffree, and others.
Remember that Tupperware I told you to put Tati in? Well, it's time to bring that out, pop it in the microwave, because we are about to make it come full circle. So, just when the bi-sister drama was seemingly wrapping up, Tati would release a video called Breaking My Silence. And if you manage to get past her using God and Jesus to distract you, her crying with no tears, and the I think I'm gonna have a heart attack, then you probably got to the part where she mentions that she was coerced by Jeffree and Shane. And not to be the friend that's unwoke, and this is going to be a little crazy coming from a self-licensed therapist, but the only person that manipulated Tati was herself. It's not that Jeffree and Shane manipulated her or even tricked her. She just was on board, but she didn't think it would backfire on her, which it did twice. Now, while I do think she is lying about being manipulated, what she's not lying about is that Jeffree and Shane were involved with the making of Bai's sister. This claim is supported by them endorsing the video in the first place and Jeffree saying that there would be more. However, that does not stop Tati from making herself look worse along with Jeffree and Shane. Tati tries to deny calling James a predator or implying that he is a predator. However, this is where I ask the audience a question. If I say that someone is using their money, power, and fame to get people who don't have money, power, and fame into doing things that they don't want to do, what am I trying to say about that person? They are a predator. But don't worry, the shit show does not stop there. Tati then goes on to tell us how, in the time she knew Jeffree and Shane, they would consistently badmouth James, with Jeffree being a bit more obsessive about it. And she even implies that Jeffree has lied about James saying he didn't want Tati in a certain video.
James, I am so sorry that I allowed myself to be poisoned and weaponized against you. I'm sorry that I bought into any of their lies. The information they were giving me was terrifying. I thought your career and freedom were in jeopardy. Back in 2019, Jeffree started talking a lot more crap about James Charles than usual. It seemed that doing so had become his biggest obsession. It started with him telling me right before filming our collab together for James Charles' channel that James Charles actually didn't want me there, that he had wanted Nikki tutorials instead, but said he'd had my back. Things further escalated at my birthday. Every time James Charles' back was turned, Jeffree would tell me that James Charles was out of control. He even texted and called me the following morning to apologize for James Charles' behavior at my birthday dinner and how embarrassed he was for me. I initially dismissed it as jealousy because James Charles' career was on a rocket ship at the time, but as the weeks went by, every time I saw or spoke with Jeffree, it seemed to me that James was all he wanted to talk about. I even met with Jeffree in his Thriller merch offices in March to discuss Jeffree developing and managing my merch, and as we were touring his warehouse that was filled with sisters apparel, it seemed that all he could do was speak poorly of James Charles. He also shared that Jeffree had wanted me to have a small role in their docuseries, but the entire series was quickly changing because there was something horrible happening in our community with James Charles. He said that James Charles was a monster with many victims. Shane said he was planning to interview victims for the docuseries. He told me that something needed to be done to stop him from hurting more people. Over the course of the next few weeks, he and Jeffree fed me so much information that I felt sick. Shane Dawson didn't just know about my bi-sister video. He offered to help edit it. He even offered to design the thumbnail and help title it.
Tati has gone on record saying that she is a mentor figure to James. But what I just showed you now really speaks to the kind of person that she is, because she was allowing people around her mentee that were bad-mouthing him, even though she herself didn't believe in what they were saying until much, much later. And that leads us into the big, big, big issue here. She says they came to her with all this evidence, right? Why did it not strike her as suspicious that instead of going to the authorities, they wanted to make a documentary and talk to drama channels and blogs? especially when it comes to Jeffree Star, because Tati claims that Jeffree has all of this blackmail on people in the beauty influencer community, which is not a new claim by Tati specifically, but wouldn't have made much more sense for Jeffree to drop this evidence himself. So now the narrative has shifted and everybody's against the aforementioned triangle, because what it looks like is that three people in their mid to late 30s decided to conspire to take down a then 18 to 19-year-old James Charles for the simple fact that he was getting way more attention than them. And it looked especially bad for Tati because she decided to lead the charge over some vitamins. It's also really important to note that this was also taking place during the time of the protests for Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and other victims of police brutality. And around this time, a lot of white influencers were being made to answer for their past transgressions against black people. And Jeffree and Shane are no strangers to this. They have a long list of transgressions. So this made it look like they were trying to expose James to cover up their own pasts.
This is where I put my final thoughts.
To sum it all up, James Charles has not been canceled and probably never will be, because a lot of the callouts that have been done on him are by people who are either not genuine, not equipped, or a little mixture of both, and they have their own controversies that they're trying to cover up. And I will say that we, the audience, we do play our part in it by still giving him attention. And this is going to sound really screwed up, but I think with a lot of the allegations, we did do a bit too much over validating. And it's understandable because it was 2019, 2020, and we were hearing one horrific story after another. So it seemed like everything we heard was the worst thing possible. And I'm seeing these takes that are along the lines of, if you don't want to take the allegations at face value, or you want more proof or whatever, then you either support James or you yourself are secretly a pedophile. And honestly, I don't think that's helping the situation at all. I think it pushes people away and just makes them not want to listen. What I think should happen moving forward is we stop giving this man attention and we properly educate people on the things that he verifiably did do, along with boycotting his products, boycotting the products of any company that works with him, unfollowing and blocking any celebrity that collabs with him. And honestly, I'm just throwing ideas out there. Thank you for sitting through this video. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and if you'd like to discuss further, the comments are open. However, remember, we are strangers, so please talk to me like you have some sense. See ya!